Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank Ranking Member McGovern for having us today. It's a real pleasure to present to the committee the joint work on digital assets between our two committees, House Agriculture and House Financial Services Committee. Let me start first with H.R. 3633, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025. Chairman Thompson and I were pleased to introduce this landmark legislation along with our colleagues, Ranking Member Angie Craig, Tom Emmer, Dusty Johnson, Don Davis, Brian Stile, Richie Torres, and Warren Davidson. For too long, America's digital assets regime has been delivered in the worst possible world. Regulation by enforcement that stifles responsible innovation and an existing commodity and security regulatory framework that's plagued by gaps that leave consumers unprotected and investors confused. This broken status quo has exposed Americans to disasters like the catastrophic collapse of FTX in 2022. It's past time for Congress to act. American consumers deserve protections, and innovators need clear, workable rules to build and grow projects here at home under common sense standards. Absent regulatory certainty through bipartisan enacted legislation, we will continue to face unacceptable risks from regulatory interpretations that can be undone by the stroke of a pen. Market participants will remain wary of operating in the United States, fearing enforcement actions and lacking durable guidance. If we fail to lead, America will cede the future of capital markets and the next generation of the internet to other jurisdictions, leaving consumers with a far less functional and less responsible marketplace. Who does this hurt most? Our constituents. The Clarity Act alleviates these concerns head-on by leveraging the existing capabilities at the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. I'm proud to say this bill is the product of countless bipartisan discussions between members of, as I said at the top, Financial Services and Agriculture committees. It builds on the years of work in the past two Congresses that produced our bipartisan framework bill in the 118th Congress called FIT 21, a bill that earned 71 Democratic votes in this House. Over the years, we've incorporated a significant amount of feedback from the relevant federal agencies as well as members of Congress and market participants. The fact is, this bill imposes strict consumer and market protections. When it comes to digital asset firms, we impose high standards. We do not allow commingling of customer funds. We impose capital, record keeping, and other vital operating requirements, and we include provisions to mitigate conflicts of interest. While market participants wait for the rules to be finalized, we include a provisional registration period subjecting registrants to oversight of a federal regulator instantly. Again, some of my Democratic colleagues may argue that the status quo is preferred and that the SEC has all the authority that it needs. Let's consider the status quo for a moment. We have a multi-trillion-dollar industry, the majority of which is subject to limited, not fit-for-purpose federal oversight. If the existing ad hoc process remains in place, I'm convinced we'll continue to see future FTX-like situations because consumers are not afforded the careful protections included in this legislation. And America will fall further behind in advancing the use of blockchain application developments in finance. This bill does not create a loophole or deregulate crypto. Quite the contrary, this framework recognizes the unique characteristics and life cycle of blockchain networks so consumers can receive similar protections that they have today in our traditional financial markets. We accomplish this through a rigorous and functional framework. First, we provide clear and specific definitions of a digital commodity, a digital asset whose value is tied to its underlying blockchain. Next, for projects that wish to offer and sell digital commodities to raise capital, we create a fit-for-purpose exempt offering regime under the rigorous scrutiny oversight of the SEC. It requires comprehensive disclosures regarding the specific attributes and risks of those proposed instruments. Furthermore, we protect retail consumers by imposing carefully calibrated resale limitations and reporting obligations on project insiders. Regardless of what some critics claim, this bill does not create a free-for-all for crypto crooks or prevent federal regulators from being able to police the market. The CFTC, which is already an expert in overseeing markets and complex financial derivatives, as well as enforcing against fraud and market manipulation in the commodity markets, is given new authority in this legislation to oversee the centralized exchanges, brokers, and dealers in digital commodity spot markets. I want to reemphasize, we are not creating loopholes, we are closing regulatory gaps. It's high time for us to fix a broken regulatory structure that's failed American consumers and innovators and failing to enable the future that we deserve. A vote for clarity is a vote to unlock the full potential of American markets and ingenuity. Now let me turn to highlight the need for Whip Tom Emmer's Bill H.R. 1919, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. This bill is simple but important. It prohibits the Federal Reserve from issuing a retail CBDC to the public. Fortunately, the United States Constitution expressly grants to Congress the sole authority to coin money and regulate the value thereof. However, over the years, vague statements by senior Fed officials about the legal authority to issue CBDCs necessitate this legislation. We must make it completely clear that authorization must come directly from Congress. Claiming that a CBDC is needed for faster payments further ignores private sector innovations. CBDCs put the government in place where it does not belong. The only new feature a CBDC possesses is increased surveillance and control over Americans' financial lives, which flies in face of Americans' rights to privacy and property. Lastly, let me comment on Senator Bill Hagerty's Genius Act. Global payment systems are undergoing a profound transformation, driven by technological advances that are reshaping how value moves in the digital age. These innovations are not only modernizing financial infrastructure, they're also lowering barriers to entry, cutting transaction costs, and bringing more people into the financial system. Over the decades, America has witnessed a steady innovation led by the private sector in convenience, accuracy, and flexibility in payments. From cash to credit cards, to debit and ATM cards, to the automated clearinghouse, to peer-to-peer platforms like Venmo or Zelle, and now to real-time payments. In each instance, the private sector has been the driving force behind this payments evolution, and Congress must act to ensure that the regulatory environment fosters innovation while protecting consumers. Payment stablecoins, once seen as a niche product within the digital asset space, now are being adopted for everyday transactions, international payments, and commercial uses worldwide. Each day, dollar-backed stablecoins facilitate billions in transactions, reducing delays in cross-border settlements, increasing transparency, helping underserved communities access digital financial services, and promoting the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. Recognize this potential. Members of the House Financial Services Committee have worked over multiple Congresses to craft legislation providing guardrails for stablecoin issuers while supporting their continued development. In this Congress, Chairman Brian Stile and his team on our subcommittee have debated and marked up stablecoin legislation, which has heavily influenced the Senate proposal that we consider today. With the Genius Act, Congress has the opportunity to provide regulatory certainty, protect consumers, and ensure that U.S. dollar remains the foundation of the global financial system. The stakes are high, and getting this right is essential to safeguard America's competitiveness and the future of payments. I thank the committee for the time, and I look forward to your questions.